Hey everyone, you're listening to Hocked Unloaded with writer-director Steve Drake and producer Rachel Franz. This is the podcast where we tell you about how we made our first feature film, Hocked. Each week, we'll bring on a new guest and they'll share their experience of what it was like making this film. You'll notice in this episode that there may be some dog barking or callers and random noises throughout, and that's because this episode had to be recorded at my house instead of in our office/studio, and the quality's not the best for a number of reasons. Mainly, Max lives in Washington, and even if he didn't, we wouldn't be able to go see him anyway because of the quarantine. With all that, we hope you enjoy the episode. In this and the next episode of the podcast, we're joined by the infamous and incomparable Max Brown. He did the score for the entire film and blew everyone away with it. He's here to tell us about the process behind his genius. Welcome to the podcast, Max.
Let's talk Hocked.
Hey, welcome. Let's talk Hocked. Let's load it up and unload it.
Dude, I feel rusty. It's been like
I know.
a couple weeks since we recorded a podcast, since the world fell apart.
Yeah, the last three were all recorded ahead of time, except for like Dave. Dave, we did right at the beginning of the whole coronavirus thing. Like our state wasn't shut down. Most places weren't shut down. I think it was like New York had been like, okay, you should probably quarantine, and that was the beginning of it.
Early.
And us rednecks up in Montana are like, nah, fuck that, man.
We do what we want.
Yeah.
Oh man, I feel it. Well, this is like the first couple of people I've talked to besides like my girlfriend or a cashier in weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm a little rusty myself.
I know.
Yeah.
It's okay. We got... It's past the noon hour, and we got some beers. I don't know if you do, but...
Oh, I've been hitting that ganj.
Oh, there you go. Okay. It's just...
I got nowhere to be.
Yeah, neither do we. Alrighty, dude. I want to go back to the beginning.
All right.
Kind of like we were touching on a second ago. I want to know, I want to take the listeners through how you became involved with Hocked and kind of why. Like, why did you decide to jump, like, into the deep end with this project? You don't know me, or you didn't know me. You know, you were in band with Rachel, like, what, a decade ago?
Almost.
And,
like a decade ago.
yeah.
It's been almost 10 years since I graduated. I know you're a couple years younger, but...
So,
Yeah.
why Hocked, man? Why all this effort for these fools over in Montana?
Man, well, me and Rachel go back, like you were saying, and I don't know, like it was out of the blue, wasn't expecting it. It seemed interesting. Man, we must have talked like maybe a little bit after you graduated. Maybe I had like a show or something you might have come to.
Yeah, so I think going back and like looking at our messages after I graduated, I think I went to like you performed at like a little local coffee spot out in Glendale at one point, and I think I went to that. And then I think the only other time that I had contacted you, I was hammered and I was asking you about your dad. If you look at our conversation on Messenger.
Oh man, and it was just so out of the blue, and I don't even think I saw anything of Hocked before I really signed on. I think maybe the trailer had come out, like that original trailer.
That makes sense. Like, you definitely came in around the trailer time. I was trying to look at the timeline to really pinpoint it, and I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
I remember sending you the very first script. It was like the roughest script ever. It wasn't even finished.
Yeah.
It didn't have an ending. And I remember sending it to you being like, hey, like, this is what we're working on. Kind of get a vibe for it. And that was before I even gave Steve your contact information.
Yeah, I remember reading that, and I remember I was talking to my girlfriend Liv about it, and I was like, I don't know, I've never read a script before, so I'm gonna read the script and see if it's good. I was like, I don't know how to tell if a script is good, but we'll see. And I kind of just I sat down that afternoon and I read through basically the whole thing, and I remember there were a couple of points where I laughed, and I knew at the end of it I was like, this seems really cool. This seems really fun. It reminded me a lot of Hot Fuzz, which I know, Steve, you've mentioned. Which after you've mentioned that, I knew that I had to do it. And yeah, thankfully, the project sounded interesting. What you wanted, you were talking about this funky retro 70s kind of thing, and the couple of tracks you guys sent me were really like interesting for this kind of a movie. I was like having a little trouble putting two and two together, but I was like, all right, that sounds fun. I'll try it, and made a couple of rough tracks for you guys. That a couple didn't make the cut, which no hard feelings. Although I did like some of those early guys, but live and let live. And yeah, it's um, there was one that I remember sounded like particular. I think Steve, you said it sounded too like monster movie ish. I can't remember the name of it. We'll play it in the podcast, but I really love that one. I thought that one would have been so cool. But it just like everything else in the score is like so much elevated beyond that piece. But in those early stages, I was like, this is the one.
Really?
Yeah,
You're such a
but
dick.
Yeah, I'm a dick.
it all worked out for the best. Because everything that you kind of struck down and said no to, ended up making space and paving the way for something way better.
Well, I'm just gonna take credit for that then. Thank goodness. No, just kidding.
Yeah, no, I mean that's like part of it. That was kind of my strategy, kind of going through, was like, I'm just gonna kind of dump as many like ideas as I can throw at you. I'm gonna throw, and then that way we've got options. I don't have to come up with like a different beat every time. It's just, here you go. Here's 5 beats for this scene. Pick one, and then we'll go from there.
Well,
And
that's
yeah,
something I want to kind of ask you about. I know the first batch of stuff you sent me was just kind of like, the first little bits, and I feel like they were all pretty different. And I liked the direction of, one that was a little more funky. And then the next batch of stuff you gave me was a little more, I think you'd seen some of the rough cuts at that point, and you gave me, I don't know, a handful of tracks. So was that how that happened? Like, because I feel like I got those tracks, and I listened to them kind of with like my eyes closed, and I just tried to get a feel of what scene they felt right for me, and then I plugged them in, and a lot of them ended up staying there. Were any of those right for the scenes that you were thinking?
yeah, actually, I remember. I think that very first batch, my initial strategy was, I watched that rough cut, that very first rough cut, and I just kind of watched it. I think there might have been some placeholder music in at the time. Um, Maybe if there was, I think there was like very little. It was mostly like silent and just a lot of grunting and rustling. And yeah, I remember just watching it and being like, all right, I watched it like twice. And then I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do like a whole writing session. And I listened to a bunch. I like went on Spotify, did a whole hunting session where I just tracked down all the best like funkadelic music. I like dug deep. I lost it, but I had this page. I just kind of had this stream of consciousness where I just wrote down every word that I wanted to be used to describe the score, just like no cliches. It's got to be funky. It's got to be just engaging. And I always turn to that. And I always turn to Spotify. Bands like the Chili Peppers, Thundercat, Earth, Wind and Fire, Herbie Hancock. So that first kind of initial phase was just pure inspiration and experimentation. Just kind of making all of the tracks, trying some stuff out, trying to get a feel for the sound. I wanted to like know I understood what you wanted. But yeah, a lot of those pieces. So when I wrote it, I didn't really write anything to the movie, but once you placed them in there, I was just kind of like, yeah, that's it. When I first saw that cut with the music in it, I was like, there was at least 90% of it. I was like, this just needs to be developed. It was like basically halfway done from the start.
You know, that's funny that I kind of felt the same way throughout the entire process of writing and filming. You know, it all happened so fast that it was, you know, we're all sort of just like going. And we're just like, well,
Yeah.
we're just going to keep going. I have no idea if any of this is going to be like how it was really going to play, you know, as a movie.
Oh,
And it was like, man, we
yeah.
got no plans for this score because the majority of the filming, when we were filming in the pawn shop, when we had our 2 months, we hadn't even contacted you yet. So I was like, boy,
Yeah.
we're doing all this work, and is it gonna look good? Is it gonna look real? Is it gonna, you know, kind of have like a credibility as a real movie, or are people just gonna, you know, be like, oh yeah, they made a movie. They made a really long, shitty movie. And dude, when I started punching in the score to everything, just what you had sent me from I think that first batch, that was when it clicked, and it was like, okay, no, this is gonna be good. This is gonna at least be good enough to where like all this work is going to pay off. So like the score was the cherry on top, and man, I think you deserve damn near as much credit as anybody for making Hocked what it is, buddy.
I think
Well, thank you.
one of like the defining moments that I remember of like knowing that you were the right fit for this was I was down in Arizona visiting family, and Steve called me. Steve fucking hates being on the phone. He doesn't call anybody, but he called me and he was like, you got to listen to something, and he put his phone down next to the laptop and played Booger's song when he's talking about fighting the bobcat. And he goes, I didn't even tell him what I wanted for that, and he just fucking nailed it. He was so
Oh my
excited.
God.
So
Yeah.
that's a lot for Steve to like pick up the phone and call somebody about something. That's saying a lot.
Oh, I'm touched. And that's really funny that that's the one that sold it, because I was like, when I wrote that one, I was just like, this is gonna be. I thought I was like, I think this is gonna be funny, but I didn't know if it was gonna be too like silly or outlandish. And I was like, I wrote it, and I felt really good about it, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like send it off, and I half expect you to be like, yo, everything else was great, but like, fuck Booker Song.
What is this Fantasia bullshit?
Yeah, like I don't understand this like Pixar Disney thing you're trying to do. Like this is Hawk. This is a grown-ups movie. Like I have expected you to just like throw it away, but like the enthusiasm, I was just like, all right, cool, I get it. And like up until that point, I knew I kind of had that room for experimentation because I had already been sort of trying to push the boundary with you and just sort of test the waters. And like the first batch of stuff I would say was a little bit more like safer. It was all very kind of in one line, and here's like some funky stuff. And then I wanted to be like, oh, but like here's this like drony, glitchy, dark thing that's 5 minutes long, and it has a, you know, feedback loop on it. And I was like, what do you think? And then thankfully you were responsive to those ideas as well. So I knew I could kind of probably get away with some orchestral stuff.
Oh hell yeah. Well, man, it was cool because I had tried to do what you did, just with, you know, shitty sound effects and tones that were built into like Final Cut. Because my dad had brought it up originally, like, man, it'd be funny if you put some like really underlying like birds chirping, and at first I wasn't really sold on it, but then I was like, well, I'll try it, and I tried it, and it sounded awful, like just terrible. Like, okay, what is this crap? And then I scrapped the whole idea completely, and then yeah, dude, you just like read everybody's minds. So it's incredible how with like just a few notes and I don't know, dude, you just like were like mind melded with everybody, and it was just cool
Yeah,
to see.
I think it's because you and I were probably watching the movie so much. I think, you know, I think at one point you told me that you and I have probably seen the movie more than anybody else. Probably like the three of us have seen it the most. And I think yeah, there was a point where I think we really just like fell on the same page very naturally early on. And like from there, we just sort of never stopped being on the same page. So it was just really easy. It was just sort of like like I remember like a lot of the notes were very minimal. It was mostly just timing, when scenes got edited, it was making things longer, making something here, but for the most part things very rarely got cut, changed, drastically edited, unless I got better ideas. Um,
No, I think the
so yeah,
main
I
note
mean,
was just like in little moments where I wanted to emphasize stuff. For instance, like I
yeah,
think like
definitely.
with the sniper scene, that one's desert, I believe, and
Yeah.
when you see the crosshairs on Kelly, I just wanted it to be like super intense, and I wanted people to think this cat's getting shot right now, and then totally let him down.
Yeah.
Be like, no, he's not.
That was like that was my baby, cuz that deep ominous rumbling synth was just like magical. Once I kind of plugged everything in just so, it just came out and I knew that was it. And it has those weird like screeching bird things. I don't it's all such a blur. I barely remember how I get half these sounds. But there's like that weird like like a penguin in the background, and yeah, that little like screeching metal sound that just kind of tenses up. That took me forever to just. I had to EQ it just so, because the distortion kept getting too much. It just made everything start clipping, and
Are you saying you put a
I was
penguin
like,
in there?
there is a penguin in that song.
What the fuck? For real?
Yeah,
That's awesome, dude. Why did
Fun
I?
there's
fact.
that little like "Roar" in the background. You could totally hear it, clear as day.
That's gonna be on the next Instagram post. Fun fact.
There's a penguin.
Yeah. Oh, there's also a bunch of creepy whispering in that song. Fun, if you want another fun fact. Yeah, I just felt like it needed something ominous, and I did a bunch of. I think I looked up like Lord of the Rings, like Gollum quotes or something. I wanted something weird to say, so I like whispered a bunch of Gollum quotes into the mic, and I reversed it, and that's like in the background in that song too.
Dude, that
Fun
is
fact.
so brilliant.
Don't,
I had no
don't
idea.
sue us, JR token.
Oh, he's crazy dead, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cause I heard it and it sounded backwards, and I just figured
Mm-hmm.
dude, you're in
That
depth,
is-
man. That's awesome.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that's good
Yeah,
stuff.
there's all kinds of weird little things I wanted to put. I don't know. You can call it Foley work, I guess. But it just when I was watching these scenes, it's like, yeah, the music's cool, but like there's also things going on, and I wanted the music to sort of reflect what was happening in the movie. So even if like the music's detached from the scene and you're just listening to it, there are certain like audio cues and things that happen that are lined up with the scene that are meant to sort of recapture that.
Oh, totally. And that comes through pretty strong, and I think he helped us in that regards with our deadline. I mean, when I was doing all that, I mean, it still took like 3 or 4 months of just pretty heavy like Foley work myself, and because it was a
Mhm.
mess, man. It was hard. We didn't really know what we were doing with our audio, but I think you took a lot of work off my shoulders for making the score line up in that way, and kind of mixing in Foley with the score, and with it's almost a soundtrack too. So yeah, that was good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad it made things easier for you, because yeah, I remember one of my biggest worries was because a lot of this was just like sort of weird improvisational recordings. And I remember just being like, God, I hope I don't have to edit this. And like I remember like there's the scene near the end where there's the gunfight in the pawn shop between the officers and the goons, and I remember we had to edit that one a little bit kind of near the end, a little close to the deadline. And I remember just being like, "Oh shit! All right." I had to like reconfigure everything, recapture the sounds. I was like, "All right, here we go. Let's just like
Max
rework
is
it
like
real quick."
on the plane flying to Montana fixing shit.
That's not too far out of what actually happened. I mean, when we were recording, it was like 2 days before the premiere, and I recorded that thing, the drum track with Theron, and I sent it your way. Was that like 2 days before, something like that?
Yeah, that was like 2 days before, and I was mixing and writing on. We took a trip to Florida, and I was working on that on the plane and during the trip.
Dude, I'm sorry.
Because I was like,
We
no,
ruined
no,
your
no,
vacation.
no, it was honestly like it was just me like being a perfectionist. Like there were so many little things because at that point most of the music was like most of the movie was done. It was like all in like the final stages. It was basically like I was in like the mixing stage of getting everything really nicely mixed. You were like coloring, I think. The theater was getting all prepped, like everything was happening, and I was like, all right, I gotta like get as much of this done as early as possible because I just in my mind I was thinking about the theater experience and I was like so there were all these little panning things I needed to do, getting things to go from one speaker to the next, just just tiny little tweaks I needed to do and I was obsessing over them. I almost didn't bring my computer with me. I was like I'm going to take a break. But I was like I'm not going to be able to sleep. I'm going to be up all night just thinking about all these edits I got to do.
That is
Sorry,
such
man.
a Steve thing to
Man,
do.
I think, dude, I think that track came in at like 3 in the morning or something. You sent that to me because I was up too. I was tweaking and doing crap, and
I
I just
remember
figured
that.
I was
Yeah,
like,
there were.
I was like, man, this guy went to
those
bed.
last few nights.
And then I was like, no shit, he's up. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, those are some late nights. But I feel like it's all worth it. I feel like everybody kind of liked the score and it all came across. All the hard work paid off.
Yeah, I agree. No, people love the score, and I do too. I want to know. I mean, how many hours do you think you spent on the score total?
Man, it's really hard to say because I mean, it must have been how many months? I mean, do you think we were passing stuff back and forth? I mean, I think it was maybe
I'm thinking 6.
yeah, it was
From
like 6,
the first
7
conversation
months.
till January 1st, the last
Yeah.
track came in.
Our premiere was
Yeah,
January
and
3rd for the listeners.
I don't know. It was really kind of a wild process because I just like there was like I would like spend like a week on it. I would just be writing and mixing and editing things, and then I'd like try to take some time off so I didn't get burnt out on it, and kind of work on my own stuff, and then I'd get an idea and I'd have to fire it up again. So, man, I don't know how many hours are in a year, but I don't know. I'd say I probably spent a good 50, 100 hours in the lab just cooking stuff up. And I mean, a lot of it is just I'll try to send you a screenshot of my Hocked score folder, but there's a lot of stuff that I didn't even just send you because it was just I was like writing and I recorded it and it was just so trash after I like listened back when I was like creating batches to send you. So there's just a lot of just buried secret Hawk stuff
Oh my god.
that will never see the light of day.
We'll
'cause
need that
it's
for the
all-
behind the scenes, man.
Yeah.
For our listeners, Max has come out with his own multiple albums in the past. He just finished another EP, and he has a day job on top of all of this. So he is not a mere mortal man, apparently.
Yeah, I just don't sleep. That's the secret. I don't sleep and I get up early.
Luckily, his girlfriend has a pretty good hookup for some good coffee.
Yeah, she does. I get free coffee all the time. It's my lifeblood.
No kidding, man. I feel you there. Well, one thing I wanted to ask you too, in the beginning it seemed like we were on the same page with the funky stuff, and I mean from the first track you sent with that funk, I was like, okay, there's all the pawn shop scenes pretty much in a nutshell. The funk is like the driving factor to the movie as far as kind of like a thematic thing, because that was something I always want. I always wanted from the beginning. This pawn shop is stuck in the past. It's got old ways, old ownership. It can't get out of the past. So I definitely wanted the score to reflect that. Was it hard to switch gears at the end and get into the more? Yeah, there was a few dark tunes that you sent pretty early, but I mean the action. In my mind, I see it as three different kind of things. Like we have action. I don't know how you wrote any of that stuff. That's cool. And then like the funk, like the chill stuff, or the funnier stuff, and then the really dark stuff. Like, how do you switch gears and still try to keep it all like under the same vein of Hocked?
That was like the mission statement from the beginning. Like when I sat down and a lot of research went into it too. I watched a lot of movies to figure out, just to find scores that I liked, and I took notes on, oh, I liked how they did that, and I watched a lot of movies that the score was written by people who do a lot of diverse music. One movie was John Wick. Was one that I studied. The Social Network. That was another score. It's not a movie, but Death Stranding. That was a game that I was kind of checking out, and all the trailers for it have beautiful music. So there was a lot of that, and kind of doing styles like that. It kind of comes naturally to me. I've been in all kinds of bands, and I've done all kinds of performances under all kinds of conditions. So it's sort of I kind of have like a really bad attention span when it comes to music. So even during a writing session, I'll be writing like a dubstep metal song, and then be like, I'm gonna write like a jazzy lo-fi piano thing. It's just kind of like what I do, and a lot of it is just trying to push myself to learn new skills and adapt to new environments. So and kind of switching gears for the movie was kind of the only thing that kept me sane, because I'd be working on the funk stuff and obsessing over it, and I'd be like, all right, I need to stop playing slap bass, and I need to like do anything else. And then I would get to like hop on the synth, and I could do some synth work or get on the sampler. And so doing that really kept it fresh and allowed me to just like keep the ball rolling. Like I never just got stuck doing one thing. And that's why I was glad you were so open to a lot of those other styles. But yeah, and God, what was your other question?
No, I'm already lost. I was lost in your voice there.
Oh yeah.
What was my question?
How he was switching.
Oh, just switch gears, and then and how do you keep it all like thematically?
Oh yeah, how do I keep it cohesive?
Three different, very different, yeah, almost genres of score. How does it all? It all feels Hocked.
Yeah, keeping it Hocked. My one little trick that I kind of had was I used a lot of the same sounds in a lot of the tracks. So my kind of weapon of choice was I had my bass and my guitar. Those were sort of the two anchors for the score, because I have a lot of like effects. I run those things through, so I can kind of use them to do anything. So there's a lot of like classical, like funky bass lines, and wah guitar. There's a lot of that, and that's used very traditionally in a lot of the funk stuff. But when it comes to some of the other pieces, I was like, all right, well, let me use this wah guitar, but I'll run it through all these effects and manipulate it in all these ways that it still has that texture. You're still experiencing that sound and that frequency, but it's manipulated in such a way that it's a totally different sound, but it's just recognizable enough that, because thankfully I don't have a ton of access to a bunch of different guitar amps or guitars. So most of my guitars end up sounding the same, and they blend together. So kind of keeping and throwing. And I was also inspired because Lanny was so attached to his guitar. So I wanted the score to reflect that, and it was very guitar heavy on purpose. I wanted, the guitar to almost feel like it was Lanny's voice coming through in the score. That's why it's so like guitar heavy and guitar focused. So like even in like scenes with like Lanny's spoiler, that's almost all guitar, just kind of being plugged through different pedals, and I'm using like the same settings I use on all the funky stuff, but I'm just freaking it. I just freaked that guitar out so hard that it's a totally different thing, and it made that scene. So once I cracked that, it was pretty kind of simple to keep everything cohesive. Once I had like a core seed, I was like, okay, I've got this hip hop beat. All I got to do is throw slap bass on it, and it sounds like Hocked.
I was just gonna ask, how is it that like you can listen to a song over and over, and you can hear a sound and think, this screaming penguin should be in this song? Like how, what is it about random different noises that like somehow in your brain makes this connection and like clicks, and you're like, that's gonna work really well? How do you know that?
I guess it's just trial and error. Through the years, it gets kind of stale using the same sounds and settings, and you can only do so much with the same plug-in or keyboard or guitar or pedal. Everything has its limits, and thankfully, with technology being the way it is, you can make music out of anything. So I've always tried to keep my ears open. I have a whole sample bank of just doors around my house, or pots and pans, or tune like forks I find, or I record stuff on the street. Like that bird sample I've used in at least 2 other songs. So I'm just constantly trying to, I recorded a fire the other night.
Yeah, dude.
Just
This
always
fucking
trying
guy.
to like just always trying to keep my ears open for fresh sounds. And once you throw something in and you throw a little reverb on it and a little distortion, all of a sudden you've got a sound that you never could have created through digital means. But you bring something organic in, you add that digital element, and then you get something like the Screaming Penguin.
You're a fucking wizard, man.
I'm just doing what comes naturally.
No, dude, that's incredible, buddy.
That's amazing.
There was plenty of scenes that, dude, were just, I was getting hung up on, and I had to do kind of similar tactics as you, where, man, you'd get burned out on a similar scene or a track, and I'd get burned out on I can't listen to my own voice anymore as Steve Dirks. I got to go add in some like blood effects somewhere else for an hour, and then I'll come back, right? But there were scenes that were kicking my ass, man. Were there any tracks that were more difficult than the other, and or did they all kind of flow for you?
Yeah, definitely. I would say most of the back half, because like the first half is a lot lighter. It's a lot funnier. That was where a lot of the funky stuff went. And so the back half, where it gets a little more serious and a little more darker and edgier, and the music is a little more diverse, for lack of a better word. A lot of that stuff, some of it was easy, but a lot of it was really hard. The scene where, are we talking spoilers? Spoilers, cool?
Oh, this is a spoiler-free zone.
You
Spoiler-free
can say
zone?
whatever you want. You can
Yeah,
say
I
whatever
don't
you
care.
want. We don't give a shit. There's no
Okay.
rules. So,
Okay.
talk about Lanny offing
yeah.
himself.
Okay,
What?
cool. Yeah, like the scene where Jay comes in, I really like that one. I just had that idea for those like Inception horns, and like and that was it. Like I had the track, and I was like, Bwah. Now what? Like I just I didn't know where to go with it, and I just like there were so many different iterations of that track. There was one that almost was like a Public Enemy song, with like an old like boom bap beat. I think there was like a real bluesy, like kind of like a Western saloon version. And I was like, God, I hate all this. I was like, this scene's just gonna be quiet. I was like, it's gonna just be blah, and that's it.
Steve's on his own,
But
man. Fuck this movie.
yeah, I was like,
I haven't talked to her in 10 years.
I was like, you know what? They're acting good enough. It's tense enough. They don't need my help. They're holding it down. But thankfully, I came up with that. I had this like Urdu sample, and that's kind of the bass line you hear in the song that like bum 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 bum. That's just like this Urdu thing going, and I had that little bum 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 little motif in there, and that was it. I was like, cool. Now this song is saved. And then I had this. I got these new headphones that are open back, and I get a lot of feedback and static when I use my mic, and so I recorded that. And that's kind of like that glitchy static you hear. Through the track is just like I recorded some of that and twisted that. That one took a long time, just because I wanted it to come across in such a certain way, and the pacing was so particular. You know, like when she shoots all those guys in the head, and just the general flow. I was like, all right, I just want to match this, and I think that one went through a couple different edits, so I kept kind of having to move things just so. So that one took a long time.
Sorry about that.
And no, it's all good. It all works out. I knew what I was signing on for. I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to get real comfy with these songs. But Lanny's Spoiler was really like the kind of the one that I got hung up on the most.
Really?
Yeah, just because it felt like such a poignant moment in the movie. Like it just felt important. It felt like kind of like the heart of the movie, where like what everything was leading up to, and I had that kind of guitar thing, and the general structure of it never really changed, but a lot of the sounds did, because they just weren't sitting right. I just kept plugging in different things, and even the drums at the end, that took me like 3 days to get right. Yeah, like a lot of that stuff in the back end just took a long time, but it was a labor of love. You know, a lot of it was just because what I was hearing and seeing wasn't happening, and it was just out of pure stubbornness that I needed to make it happen.
Yeah, that's the only reason Hocked is here, man. It's just pure stubbornness. So that's good.
Sometimes I think, what have I done by introducing these two?
Oh man.
I know. What was there any? I guess what was it like? Because you were prepping to hear your score in a theater setting, and I knew it was going to be up on a theater, and I had that was in my mind as well. But I mean, what was it like to hear everything in the theater, and was it what you expected?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time kind of trying to prepare myself, and I read a lot of articles on like mixing for a theater and trying to prepare myself for how that was going to sound. And before I sent off those like final mixes, I listened to them all like 10, 15 times a piece. Just because I was like, I just have to make sure that this is good. Yeah, and I remember when I sat down, and those it starts with that song with the case, and I remember I was like, okay, this sounds okay, and I kind of like did a little side eye to the theater, and I was like, nobody's throwing up, nobody's covering their ears, okay, yeah, nobody's leaving, and then like as the movie went on, I was like, okay, all right, I got a few like reassuring pats on the back from Rachel. I was like, okay, all right. And then like at the end of it, like I don't think I really felt like, oh, we did it. Like we made the movie and everything is good, until like we went on stage and nobody booed us or tried to
You didn't get
throw
heckled?
tomatoes at us.
Yeah. That's what I keep
Yeah.
saying too. Yeah, no
And I
one's
was
throwing
like,
tomatoes
okay.
yet. We're good.
Yeah, it was like, all right, I think we did it. I think we pulled it off.
I think we did okay.
And yeah, yeah, it was really surreal. I've never, aside from like the handful of shows that I've played, it's like I've never heard anything I've done that loud.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
I do like car tests, and I play stuff in my studio, but a movie theater is a lot different. And yeah, it was just so surreal, hearing everything like that. Um, I can't really describe it, um, but it was nothing like I could have imagined.
Oh, me neither. Yeah, I'm not a
Yeah.
musician, and I've never done a live show or anything, but it was almost like I kind of got that vibe, like, man, because people were yelling and screaming, and their favorite or the person that they knew was up on the screen, and it was their opening scene, and
Yeah.
people were like whistling and stuff. Like, it was pretty sweet.
hmm Yeah, I had this idea, and I didn't float it by you guys because I knew Rachel would have just killed me because you guys were so busy. But I was like, man, it'd be cool if, like, because Theron plays drums and Rich plays guitar. I was like, man, maybe we should like set up a little gig on stage, and we could open up the movie with like we'll play one of the tracks from the movie and open it up that way. I was like, that would have been sick, but I was like, everybody's probably just like so busy, and I was busy too. I was like, maybe we'll save it for the next one.
Yeah, when you were here, I mean, you were here for the premiere, and you were here when I found out that our show almost got canceled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You did the majority of your work from states away, but somehow you still had
Got caught up
experienced
in
the
it.
wrath of Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, everything was going wrong that day, but yeah,
It's all good. It
you're
worked
not
out.
really a part of Hawked if you hadn't heard me yell at somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you made it too. That was cool to have you there, because dude, you're a big part of this thing. So
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I knew it was a once in a lifetime thing. I almost felt like I had no choice. I would have felt like an asshole being like, yeah, like I know we all worked really hard on this thing, but I don't really care. I don't need to come out. So yeah, no, yeah, I wanted to be out there and celebrate with y'all, and I knew it was like going to be like such a like weight off everybody's shoulders to like see it just done. And I remember I was imagining like being at home that night and like just chilling while everybody's partying, watching the movie.
looking
And
at
I
your
was like,
watch,
fuck
being like,
that,
well, the
man, I
movie just
can't.
started. Oh, I hope it's going good.
Yeah. Oh man, I hope it's going okay. Yeah, no, that was cool, man. Yeah, because you never know if you're gonna get another one. So I knew I had to jump at it.
Yeah, the probably most consistent compliment we get, I would say, is the music. People fucking love it, and I can't
Oh
imagine
man.
it without it. So we're super thankful.
Well, that's sweet. Yeah, that means a lot. Yeah, I knew like I really I wanted it to be catchy. I knew I did like some of the movies I watched, the music's kind of like there and it's like an emotional support, but there's no real melodic rhythmic anchor. And I was like, "Nah, I want this shit to slap." You know?
Yeah, yeah. No,
It's like
most
I'm
you
like
see
I'm
movies and it's like, let's throw in more AC/DC or like Creedence
Yeah,
Clearwater.
yeah.
It's like, oh,
yeah,
great,
you
great,
know.
yeah, that again. No, this was sick and original and just so perfectly hawked. I loved it.
Also, we couldn't have
Yeah.
afforded to get any other music.
Yeah. Sorry, dude.
Oh
I
man.
yeah, we
No.
gotta get
Yeah.
you some money next time.
Yeah, for
Ye-
sure. We'll
Yeah,
pay you on
hopefully
the next
after
one.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully by that time, we'll have such a clamoring that we can just sell the soundtrack, and I'll just take all the cuts from that.
There
Dude,
you
I
go.
was thinking about that. I mean, we gotta capitalize on dude, I would listen. I would listen to the score. Like, for real, it's
Yeah,
cool.
I thought about it. I fell off working on it, but now that we're all stuck at home, maybe now would be a good time to fire that up.
It might not be a bad idea. We're selling DVDs, we're selling Blu-rays. Might as well, if we can scratch something together while we've got this sale going on, we could add that to the pre-order and see what we can come up with. It might be kind of fun.
Yeah, I don't know how. I haven't looked into making physical CDs in a long time, but okay. Yeah, I know. I know. There's like some companies that make it really easy. But yeah, as far as like digital stuff goes, I do have like a Spotify like account and everything. So if you guys want to put it like under my thing, then that's gonna be super easy. But unless you guys want to do like put it under Hocked, then that's your guys' thing.
No way, dude. We want Max Brown to get some fucking love.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, we'll definitely have to, cause yeah, I've got some ideas kicking around. So yeah, we'll definitely have to work on that. Maybe we can include some of the B-sides and some of the stuff that didn't make it.
Oh, totally. I might need some of that for some of the behind the scenes stuff, dude.
Are you still working on that?
Oh, I'm always still working on that. Yeah.
Oh man, it comes out like next Friday, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, dude, I'm gonna call you next Thursday night and tell you I need 30 tracks.
Oh man, I'll have them ready.
I know you will, man. Well, dude, where else can people find your stuff? Let's plug you, bro.
Yeah, I'm doing stuff on YouTube lately. You can just find me, look up Max Brown on YouTube. Yeah, I'm doing like beat making stuff and like remixes and some other cool stuff. Working on a new album that's gonna come out pretty soon. You can find all my old stuff at bandcamp.com/maxbrownmusic. Yeah, find me on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever else. My last record was called Open Your Eyes. It's a little 5-song instrumental EP. Really good for quarantine time. If you're at home. Yeah, but yeah, I've got new stuff kind of coming out all the time. I'm on all social media as at the Max SB. Yeah, just look me up, follow me. I'll have stuff coming out pretty regularly. Music related stuff.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, you can also hear my music on the Hocked DVDs that are on the Indiegogo campaign. So go check out the Indiegogo campaign and pick one up if you haven't.
Hell yeah. Okay, Max. I have one last question to end our part 1 of our 2-parter. And it's the most important question that I could ask the score master, Max Brown. Who wins in a fight, Booger or the Bobcat?
How old's the Bobcat?
We're getting technical.
We haven't had that question yet.
I think it's important.
I think it's let's get the both Booger. Let's see, Booger's a young man, kind of in his prime. Mm-hmm. So I would say, yeah, we got to get a Bobcat.
That's in its prime.
A younger male Bobcat in his prime. Yeah.
Okay, make it even.
Yep.
Yeah, if it's gonna be an even, totally square fight, I go with Bobcat every time.
Bobcat every time. Why?
It's like you said in the movie. It's got claws and fangs and shit. Like, I'm sorry, but like these hands don't stand a chance against that. You know? Yeah, you get your eyes clawed out, you get your guts ripped out every time.
I love it.
Sorry, Booger.
We love you, Booger, but you're not making it. You're catching.
It's all love, but you're not making it through this.
Yeah. Thank you, Max. You're the man. You were the rug that tied the room together. So I'll leave it at that.
I appreciate it.
That is so gay that he said that, but he has it written down on his notes and everything.
Yeah, I didn't want to not say it.
So gay.
That's sweet.
Thank you.
Kisses, Steve.
I want him. Did you hear Cam?
Three-way kiss with Cam.
That's it for this week. Next week, it's Max Brown Part 2, where we take a deep dive for some of the tracks for the film and how he was inspired to make any of them. Keep up to date on all the Hocked things that we're doing and where we're doing them by following us on all the major socials at Hocked the Movie.